everybody, good evening and welcome to your very own Byju's 6th, 7th and 8th grade channel. I'm your teacher Aishwarya and I welcome you to today's class where we are going to be covering the latter part of the chapter Reproduction in Animals, where we are going to be covering sexual reproduction in animals. We will understand about what is the process of fertilization, what is implantation, what are the differences between an embryo and a fetus. Then of course we will also be moving ahead to understanding about types of fertilization, metamorphosis, so on and so forth. So today's class is going to be very important, especially on an examination point of view. So very quickly students, please do let me know if my audio, my video and my screen and whatever I'm writing on my screen is visible to all of you. If it is, please do give me a quick thumbs up to let me know that we are good to go. Yes? Okay, I can see that many of you here in the live chat are telling me that we are good to go. That is awesome. Okay then. Good evening. I can see Soham, Jaipreeta, Anushka, Radhya, Sundar. Yes, good evening Mansi. Okay, very good, very good. Many of you are here for the class and many of you I can see are very excited. Now, of course, before I get started with this particular topic, right? Now, see, this particular topic in most times when teachers take this class, what happens? We end up getting a lot of weird comments, right? A lot of inappropriate comments, a lot of things that you think it is okay to say, but it is absolutely not okay to say, right? See, being genuinely curious and asking questions is normal because you are all children. But there is a way of communicating your doubts, right? So I would specifically say that if you are there in today's class, please maintain the decorum of the class, right? Please make sure that it is a learning environment. We are not here to make fun of people, say inappropriate things. Everybody is, humans, right? They have feelings. So it is not that there is a bot out there and nobody is going to feel bad about whatever you say. So you need, right? You need to make sure that all of you are being, I would say, respectful, very clearly. Okay, very good Rashi, very good. Okay, awesome. Okay, all of you, very good. So we shall get started. Now, as I told you that these are the things that we are going to be discussing today. But before we get started, I hope that all of you have your notebooks and your textbooks ready with you. Yes, most important thing I always tell you is to have your notebook and textbook ready. Now, of course, next up that I need all of you to do is make sure that you have your stationery. Pen, pencil, eraser, whatever you need to make sure you want to write important notes down, mark whatever is necessary in class, right? So have all of that ready. Now, third most important thing is that you have your water bottle, right? Have your water bottle, make sure that you are hydrating yourself and you are drinking water at all times. So make it a point that all of you here have your water ready. Last but not the least, right? Be in a quiet place to focus. Now, yes, I knew this would happen. There would be kids in the live class telling me, ma'am, menti kab hoga, menti kab hoga. Today you are not going to have menti because as you all know, today we are going to be having a theory class. We will do menti next week, okay? We will first finish the syllabus. So, no, we do not have any menti today. Last but not the least, right? When I am teaching you, sometimes I will not look at the chat. That does not mean that I don't care about my live students. There are going to be many students who will be watching this video much after the live stream as well. So for all of them, I will make it a point that I teach at one stretch. Then I will be doing doubt boards, right? When I take a doubt board, you can ask me your doubts. Now, important thing, okay? Now you imagine I'm teaching the first portion of the chapter and you're asking me a question from metamorphosis which I'm going to cover in the end. That will not work. No, I will teach everything, not like I'm going to ignore and not teach you something. So always remember, I will teach you all the concepts. I only request your patience in the class, right? So please be patient and ready. And yes, I remember all of you, Rashi, you've been asking me, Rashi, Shubhang, so many of you have been asking me if you remember. Of course, I remember all of you, right? Lots of love to all of you. Now, in the class, I always keep a like leader, right? That means somebody who's going to make sure that we hit our targeted likes. So in this case, how about today I gave Rashi, I think I gave Rashi a chance, right? Who wants to be the like leader today? Yes? Anushka, I did read up about the immortal jellyfish. The concept that you want to want me to explain, right? How exactly is it immortal? It'll be difficult for me to do it in the beginning. How about I do it towards the end? I hope you are okay with that. Very good. Many of you are saying, ma'am, me. Okay. So now I will maybe I need to make some space to write names. Okay, see, I'm picking two names that I have seen randomly. Selena is going to be the like leader for today. We have Selena, then let's have, who else? Chat is going so fast today. Awesome. Now, okay, maybe we can have Gajendra today, right? So Selena and Gajendra, you both are going to be the like leaders. Probably Gajendra, your name might be different, but I'm calling your username today, right? So you both are going to be the like leaders. Don't worry, every week I give a new like leader, so don't worry. I will make all of you will get an equal opportunity. So very quickly, make sure that Selena and Gajendra, you make it to the point that we hit at least 200 likes on this video. Don't worry, Hazel, there's always going to be a next time. Okay? Now, of course, very quickly, as we talk about like leaders and as we talk about learning in proper, right? Learning extensively, you know that Byju's, the learning app, is your place to go. See, now many of you, we had a community poll on the channel recently, and many of you told us that from December you have exams going on. Now, of course, right? Many of you, as you all know, if you have your exams coming up and you need to revise, but for some reason on YouTube we have not started the revision, or maybe the chapter that you wanted us to cover is something that we have not started. So in such cases, what will you do? You need a place where you can revise effectively, right? So in that case, you can go to the revise section, wherein you see that we have chapter summaries, important questions, we have practice questions, tests, everything available, so that as and when you plan your study routine, if the YouTube schedule does not match, you always have Byju's with you to learn, right? So you can go ahead and you can check this out, this feature of Byju's, wherein the revision section in the app, it's absolutely free, right? Absolutely free. All you need to do is, there's a link in the description of this video. Go click on that, download the app, go to this, okay? You will be able to access all the features, right? Now, there are two links, one for iOS and one for Android. So click on the respective link. Yes? Okay. Am I going to cover the whole NCERT chapter? Not really, because I have finished asexual reproduction. So in our previous class, right, what did we discuss? In our previous class, we learnt about reproduction, and we also discussed about the modes of reproduction. Yes? So we learnt about the two modes, which is asexual reproduction and sexual reproduction. So can you all tell me how many parents are involved in asexual reproduction? Yes? How many parents are involved in asexual reproduction? Very, very good. Exactly, right? We see that in asexual reproduction, only one parent is involved. While in sexual reproduction, we know that there are two parents which are involved in this process, which means that there is a male and there is a female involved, right? Now, why is reproduction necessary? We know that reproduction is a process by which living organisms make young ones of their own kind. So, for the continuity of species or for the survival of species, we see that reproduction is necessary. So we see that there are two modes, asexual reproduction and sexual reproduction. Now, because in asexual reproduction only one parent is involved, they do not make any specific cells for reproduction, right? So specific cells made for reproduction are called as reproductive cells, or what we can call as gametes. So in the case of asexual reproduction, we see that there are no gamete, while in the case of sexual reproduction, there is formation of gametes. Last but not the least, one major point of difference: in asexual reproduction, we see that offsprings are identical, while in sexual reproduction, we see that offsprings are similar. So we also learnt, right, that there are various ways in which asexual reproduction can happen. We learnt about fission, where we learnt about binary fission and multiple fission. Then we also learnt about budding, which we saw in Hydra as well as yeast. Then of course we also have regeneration, which we learnt especially in the case of planaria, starfishes, so on and so forth, right? So this is all the things that we have covered in our previous class. Now in case if you have not watched this video and you want to brush up your concepts, I will provide the links in the comments of this video, which will be pinned. You can click on it and watch the previous session. But like I said, today's class is going to be on sexual reproduction. Now see, why are we saying as sexual reproduction? Now in asexual reproduction, we saw that it was happening in lower organisms, right? So it's happening in lower organisms. So when I say lower organisms, I can say simple organisms, right? Like bacteria, amoeba, you know, let's say in the case of Hydra, they're all simple organisms. Now, normally, if you look at it, you normally observe it in lower organisms. But as organisms become more complex and complex in their body, right? That means, like in our case, our body is made up of so many different parts, so many different kinds of cells. So in such cases, what happens? We see that there is a lot of specialization in our body, right? Can I say that in human beings, there is a lot of specialization? Yes or no? Do you all agree with me? Higher organisms means very advanced organisms, right? Very complex organisms where their body is very complicated. Too many things are happening in their body. Yes? Very good. Exactly. We can say that our body has specialization. Now, what is specialization? Specialization that is there is basically when there are specific parts of the body, right? There are specific parts of the body that carries out specific functions. So, if I were to ask you, which part of our body does digestion? What will you tell me? Ma'am, our digestive system does digestion because it has stomach, it has intestine, and you know all of those parts are involved in digestion. You all agree with me? Similarly, if I say, okay, which part is responsible for helping me move around, right? What are the parts which are helping me move around? Are all parts of my body, you know, collectively doing that, or do we have special parts? We have our bones, we have our muscles, right? All of this is what is helping us. So similarly, if you see, there is specialization, right? We see that there is specialization. Or I can say that simply put, there are specific parts of the body that carry out specific functions. So similarly, in our body or in the human body, we see that for this process of reproduction to take place, we see that there are specific parts which are involved in this. Now we see that in sexual reproduction, we see that there is a male involved and there is a female involved. Now when I say male and female is involved, right? So if male and female is involved, how exactly are they getting involved? Now, when we say how exactly they are getting involved, it is by the production of gametes, right? So, what are gametes? Gametes can be defined as reproductive cells, right? So, we can call them as reproductive cells, or I can call them as germ cells, right? I can call them as various things, or sex cells. We can call it as anything. But here, what is our understanding? Because many of you did not or always have a doubt of what is gamete, right? So a gamete is a cell or gamete is a structure which is actually getting involved in reproduction, right? So when I say male and female is getting involved and they are producing a young one, it is this gamete that is getting involved. Now here, because two parents are there, we see that there are two gametes, right? So from the male, we have one gamete which we call as male gamete and one from the female which we will call as female gamete. So are we all clear? Yes? Are we all clear? Yes or no? Rudrash, I will do that towards the end. Okay, so far, whatever I have explained, are we clear? Are we good to go, ma'am? We have understood the basics, right? We have understood of what is basic. Don't worry. Okay. Now many of you are asking me, ma'am, should I write down notes? Please write down notes, right? Ma'am, are we required to copy this down? See, whatever I'm saying is there in your textbook, you can underline it. But in case if you want to write it down also, you can write it. Yes? Okay. I said germ cells, right? Anushka, I mentioned germ cell. Okay, awesome. No, I will get to all of your question. So once again, what are gametes? Now in sexual reproduction, we say that there are two parents involved. Now when I say two parents are involved and they are coming together to make a young one, what is actually getting involved in this? It is because the parent that is there is producing a cell. It is producing a structure which will actually get involved in sexual reproduction, right? So they are producing some specific structures, or in this case, they are producing a specific cell. Now that cell which gets involved in reproduction is what we will call as a reproductive cell, or what we will call as gametes, okay? Awesome. Now Tisha is like, ma'am, where are the gametes present? Now we see our body has specialization, right? So I told you, for digestion we have digestive system, for respiration we have respiratory system, for movement we have muscular system, skeletal system, right? We have so many systems in our body, which means that for reproduction also there should be a reproductive system, right? So similarly, in the human body, we observe that there are reproductive systems, right? So we see that there are reproductive systems. Now, when we say that there is a reproductive, when we use this word system, right? Now imagine, when I say digestive system, what are the things that come to your mind? When I say digestive system, what are the things that come to your mind? Yes or no? Can you quickly tell me? Yes? When I say the word digestive system, we have learnt about this in our lower grades. What are the things that come to your mind? Very good. You will tell me, ma'am, stomach, ma'am, intestine is there. Okay, very good. What else? Ma'am, we have esophagus. Very good. So we have esophagus. Then what else do we have? We have large intestine, small intestine, all okay. Yes, ma'am, pancreas is there. Very good. Mouth. Okay, what am I getting to with this? What is it that I am about to get to with this particular understanding? That when I say there is a digestive system, it means that there are various parts that come together and that make up a system. So different organs, when they come together, right? So when various organs or when various structures come together, then they make up an organ system, right? So in this case, all these different organs are making up an organ system. So similarly, if the digestive system is made up of all these different organs, then the reproductive system is also made up of various organs and or structures, right? Various parts, you can say in very easy words. They're made up of different parts. Now all these parts, they will work together. So they will work together in order to facilitate or help with the process of reproduction, right? So this reproductive system is made up of different parts. They're made up of different structures for what? So that reproduction can take place. Yes? So now we see that in the body. Now you have two parents which are involved. You have male and you have female, which means that they will both, male and female, will not have same reproductive system, but rather they will have different reproductive systems. So in males we see that there is a male reproductive system, and in females there is a female reproductive system. So are we all clear so far? Yes? Are we clear as to what is a reproductive system? Yes? Are we clear? Ma'am, why are they also called as germ cells? Because that's just a name given to them, right? Okay. Sorry about that, students. I'm still recovering from my throat condition, so I may cough a lot. Abhi, I'm going to give you the names. Don't worry, don't worry. I'm going to answer a lot of questions that you are asking me, right? Okay, ma'am, germ means bacteria. No. Germs are different. Germ cells are different, right? Germ cells is another technical term that you normally give for, let's say, some of the cells which are produced inside the body which have the reproductive ability. So in the lower organisms, the term germ cell was used, right? So they had this concept of, see, the idea of germ cell came in especially in lower organisms where the germ cells were responsible for bringing in or continuing reproduction, while there are other cells which were not really involved. So that is the whole idea of the concept of germ. Not that germ cells means germs like bacteria, okay? Yes. Okay. Now that we have understood this, right? Now that we have understood this, Purvi, I'll take your question. See, I always tell you, first understand the basics and then I'm going to, because I feel that a lot of the questions that you are asking me will make more sense when I finish male and female reproductive systems, okay? So I will finish this bit. Now for the next 15 minutes, I need your focus. Because now I will teach you this at one stretch and then after that I will take your doubts. So are you all with me on this? That ma'am, for the next 15 minutes I am going to pay attention to you. Whatever doubts I have, I will write it down in my notebook and I will ask you, right? But up until the meanwhile, I need you all to pay attention to what I am teaching because I will go as slow as possible, right? Okay, now pay attention because we are going to go into the details of it, right? So now we will go into the details of male reproductive system and female reproductive systems. Doubts, hold it. I will answer it. Just pay attention for next 15 minutes, okay? Now I told you that there is male reproductive system and female reproductive system. Now the male reproductive system is what we find in males, right? And we see that the primary function of the male reproductive system is two. First is to produce the male gamete. Now the male gamete is also called as the sperm. And secondly, the next job of the reproductive system is to ensure that the sperm that is there is transported or it is transferred to the female, right? So here we see that these are two aspects of the male reproductive system. Now in males, right, we see that one of the main jobs that we see is to produce male gamete, right? They have to produce the male reproductive cell, which is the sperm. So there is a structure which is responsible for producing the sperm, or I can say that there is the organ responsible, right? The organ responsible for the production of male gamete, right? Of male gamete is what we will call as the main reproductive organ. So are we clear what is a main reproductive organ? The structure that is responsible for producing the male gamete, right? Now we see that in males it is called as testis. So the testis is the main reproductive organ that is there. And we see that these are small ovoid structures, right? Ovoid means oval structures. Now these testes that are there, they are not located inside the body, right? But rather we find it hanging outside, right? Or you can say that it is present outside the body or outside the abdominal region, right? So we say that it is found outside the abdominal region, or the technical biological word is they are extra-abdominal. Extra-abdominal means they are outside the abdominal region, right? And we see that it is found protected by a sac of skin. It is found protected by a sac of skin called as scrotum. Now this is little extra information, but it's good for you to know, right? So we see that in males it is found, or the scrotum is what protects the testis. Now, what is the main job of the testis? It is to produce the male gamete, which is the sperm, right? So this will produce the sperm here. Now once the sperm is produced, it is not that the male gamete is, good to go. This sperm that is there also needs to become mature, it needs to become developed, and it needs to carry out its function. So in this case, what do we see? Sorry about that. So the sperm here needs to undergo maturation. So from the testis, it will go to the next part, right? So we see that it will go to the next part, which is a highly coiled structure. Yes, we see that it will move on to a highly coiled structure. Not like villi, but think of it being highly coiled, okay? And we will call this structure as epididymis. Now this is little extra beyond, but it's okay, right? It's good to learn extra. I mean, not good to learn extra, but when we are learning, let's learn it properly. So now, of course, it will be in the epididymis where the sperm is stored for some time, right? It is stored for some time. And from here, it will then be transported. So once the sperm is ready to be transported, it will then go to the next part, which is the vas deferens or the sperm duct, right? Now, this is what we call as the sperm duct. Now, this sperm duct that is there, now see, the testis that is there is outside the body. So, the sperm duct is actually climbing upwards, right? It is moving upwards. And what will it do? It will move up and it will loop around the urinary bladder. So, we know that the urinary bladder is where? Urinary bladder is where urine is stored briefly, right? So it will go to the sperm duct, it will loop around the urinary bladder and then it will join the urethra. So it will loop around, and as it goes and it loops around and it moves on, right? It will then receive, so now the sperm has gone up, it's gone down, it's going through the tube, right? The sperm duct, which is a tube-like structure. So think of this as a tube inside the body that is carrying the sperm. Yes. So now as you go, it also receives some secretions. It receives some fluid, right? It will receive some fluids. It will receive fluids from some glands or from structures. So what will happen? We call these glands as accessory glands, right? So as this loops around, it will receive secretions from accessory glands, right? It will receive the secretion. So now what has happened? We see that along with the sperms, we see that there are secretions or fluids from the accessory gland. So this is what we will call as semen, right? It is a whitish milky fluid that is there. Now once it comes here, we see that the urethra will enter into the external genitalia. Now see, this is something wherein most of us will, do and all that, okay? Nothing. This is biology, right? This is something that all males have, right? This is not something to be ashamed of. This is not something to smirk about, right? This is normal. And the more we start feeling normal about it, the more we're able to communicate, right? So in this case, what happens? We see that there is an external genitalia. Now, what is an external genitalia? The structure which is present outside the body, right? Now, here what do we see? We see that in males, it is called as the penis, right? Now, the urethra. Now, ideally, we have a structure called as urethra, which ideally is supposed to be responsible for transporting urine outside the body. But in this case, apart from the urine also, it has an additional function where even the sperms move through it. And finally, we see that there is the external genitalia. So, are we clear? Or how many of you were like, ma'am, here and there I understood 1-2 things, but still, one more time I think you should explain so that it makes it easy. How many of you were like, ma'am, kuch bhi samajh mein nahi aaya hai? All I got to know that, ma'am, there is some testis, then there is some sperm, right? Lot of, what do you say, something here and there is happening, right? Or all understood? Okay. Yes. I have doubt. Ma'am, not clear. Me. Okay. Explain again. Little bit you understood, right? Ma'am, is sperm a cell? Yes, sperm is a cell. Okay. So, shall we revise this one more time? Shall we revise this one more time? Yes? Okay. I can see that there are some ICSE students who are specifically asking me for seminal vesicle, prostate gland. I see many ICSE students who are here, right? Okay, very good, very good. Ma'am, easy peasy chapter, yes. Okay, awesome. Now I'll go ahead once again, right? Now I'm going to quickly explain this bit so that you all understand and you can make your notes. No, jaldi se I will explain. Don't worry. Yes? Now, what did we learn about? We saw that there are reproductive systems which are made up of different parts that come together and help with the process of reproduction, right? So that is what we need to understand. Now, in the case of male reproductive system, we see that the main reproductive organ, right? So we see that the main reproductive organ is called as the testis, right? And we see that in males there is a pair of testes. That means there are two testes. Yes? Now, why do we call them as the main reproductive organ? Because we see that they are responsible for producing the male gamete, or what we call as the sperm. Right? And I told you that in sexual reproduction, two gametes are the ones that come together. So one gamete is produced by the males, which is the sperm, right? Now we see that there is a pair of testes, right? Now this is where we see that the sperms are produced, right? Now this, of course, I'm going to quickly draw it easily, yes? Now they are protected by a sac-like structure which is called as scrotum. Now we see that these testes are found hanging outside the body, or they are found outside the body, which is what we will call as extra-abdominal, or simply put, they are found outside the body, not inside the body. Yes? Now next up, what do we see? We see that there are these structures, these highly coiled structures which are present on the back side of the testis. And we will call this as epididymis. I hope my spelling is right because I tend to make spelling mistakes here. So this is the testis and this is the epididymis. What happens inside the testis? Sperms are produced. Now these sperms cannot be utilized as it is, right? Whatever sperm is produced cannot be utilized directly for reproduction. But what do we observe? We see that in this case, the sperms need to undergo some maturation, right? It needs more things, which is where we see that it gets brief. So once the sperms are produced in the testis, it will then go from the testis to the epididymis, where it is stored peacefully, right? We see that it would be stored not peacefully, it will be stored for some period of time, right? So we see that it will be stored for some period of time. Now from the epididymis, what do we observe? I'm going to erase this and write it here once again. So from the epididymis, what will happen? Now from here, the sperm needs to go, right? The sperm needs to leave the male body. Okay. Now in order to leave the male body, the sperm will get transported, right? Now sperm will get transported. Now how will it get transported? It needs a tube, right? It needs a tube, it needs a tubular structure in order to move, right? It needs a tubular structure. This tubular structure is what we will call as the sperm duct or the vas deferens. Are we all clear so far? Are we all clear? Yes, very good. Responsible for the maturation of sperms. Yes. Sperm maturation and cell maturation. Not much, right? See, in both cases, sperm is a cell which undergoes maturation. So, there's not much difference, but just that every cell has a different way in which it undergoes maturation. So, that is one point of difference, right? Okay. Spermatogenesis is the process by which sperms are produced, right? Ma'am, define epididymis in a simple way. Think of it as a place. Now, imagine that you bought, so this is like this. Imagine you bought a pant, okay? The pant doesn't fit you. So what will you do? You will go give the pant for alteration, right? You have to give the pant for alteration so that the pant can fit you, right? So you will give it to the tailor for 1-2 days where he'll alter your pant. Then after that you can wear the pant, right? So similarly, if you think of it, the sperm is something like that. Now the sperm cannot be used as is. It needs to undergo certain maturation processes. It needs to become more functional. So as the sperm produced as it is will not serve the process of reproduction. Yes. So it needs to be done in such a way, right? Or rather we need to use, or the sperm needs to undergo some maturation. So that is what we understand by this, or what happens in the epididymis. Scrotum and scrotal sac are more or less the same thing. Not much difference. But are you clear till epididymis, or have we all gotten lost? Ma'am, we have all gotten lost. Are we clear? Yes? I'll read seminal vesicle. Wait. Okay. Ma'am, sperm is unicellular or multicellular? Good question. Sperm is a single cell, right? Made up of different structures. Scrotum is the correct pronunciation. Yes, but we can say scrotal sac also. Awesome. Gonad and gland, I'll give the question. I'll answer that. Coming back, right? We have sperm duct, right? So now the sperms have reached the sperm duct. Now I told you that the testis is present in the extra abdominal region, right? Extra abdominal region, and now it needs to go up. So now it's entered into the sperm duct. So what will happen? Sperm duct will go upwards, right? Now it is ascending, it is going up, right? So here we see that it is going up. Now once it goes up, what will happen? It will go up till the urinary bladder. Now what is the urinary bladder? All individuals have a urinary bladder. So urinary bladder is a bag-like structure, right? A muscular bag-like structure where urine is stored, right? And we know that it is stored for some time, and we see that through the urethra is how the urine is expelled outside the body. Yes or no? I hope now you are clear. Now from here, right, what happens? Now this is the urinary bladder. Now the sperm duct is going, it will loop over and it will join, right? It will join the urethra. Okay, so it will slowly join the urethra. Now when it joins, right, as you can see, it is joining here. Now when it joins, there will be various structures. So here, if I were to erase all these lines, you see that you have one sac-like structure, you have one big ball-like structure, then there's one chuntu, small structures. Now what are these? These are called as glands. Now what are glands? Glands are nothing but they are a group of special cells. Okay, so they could be a group of special cells or they could be an organ, right? So we see that they are a group of special cells or they are an organ. Now what is special about them? They have the ability to secrete substances, right? So they have the ability to secrete substances or fluid. So as you can see, in our mouth we have saliva, right? In our mouth we have saliva. Now this saliva that is there, it's a fluidy structure, yes? Now this is produced by salivary gland. So similarly, such fluidy structures are produced by accessory glands. Now there are three types of accessory glands whose names are seminal vesicle, prostate and Cowper's gland or bulbourethral gland. That is what you will learn in 10th standard. You don't need to worry about the names now. You only need to know that there is accessory gland. Yes? Now once it receives the secretion, what has happened? Now the sperm is there along with secretions from whom? From the accessory glands, right? From the accessory glands. So what do we call this? We call this as semen. Now this semen that is there is a milky whitish fluid that is produced. Yes? I will answer, but you wait. First you understand this. Half and half you want to learn and ask me other rando questions, right? Pay attention. Okay. So are we all clear? Japneet, I've given you all the technical terms. You ask me technical doubts. Awesome. So now from here what has happened? There is formation of semen, right? So semen is here. Now it has entered into the external genitalia. What is external genitalia? External genitalia is the part that is found outside the body, right? So here we see that in males it is the penis. So we see that through the penis is where the sperms will be ejaculated or given out of the body. Are we clear? Prostate gland is found only in males, right? Yes. Are we all clear now? Ma'am, is sperm movement always unidirectional? More or less, right? Transport of sperms happen only in one direction. Okay? How? Yes, I'll get to the remaining part of it. James, if you want to ask me random questions, you can leave the class. Nobody's forcing you to be here. Yes? Okay. Sperm duct. Krishna, think of it as a tube which transports the sperm. Easy. Vas deferens, another name for sperm duct. Okay? Awesome. Now I will move on to the next aspect of it, right? So now we have understood that this is the male reproductive system. Now we will move on to the next bit of it, which is the female reproductive system. And I have answered as many questions as possible, right? Remaining inappropriate questions, you can ask. Please go ahead and don't. When I've answered it once to you, I would like the fact that you maintain the decorum of it. Now we'll move on to the female reproductive system. Happy is to God cool or whatever your name is. If you say, ma'am, I don't understand, you'll also have to tell me what you don't understand. It's very difficult when you're being generic, right? So you can ask me your doubts, I will clarify it. Not a problem. I'll teach the same thing 500 times, but as long as you understand the concept. And I'm going as slow as possible. No mentee, Anjani, no mentee. Next up, we have the female reproductive system, right? Now, what is the female reproductive system? Similarly, we saw that there were various structures and organs that were responsible for production of male gamete and its transport. So similarly, in females also, we see that there are various structures, right? So we see that there are various structures that are responsible or that come together in the production of the female gamete and of course in ensuring that male and female gametes meet, right? So first and foremost, just like how in males, there is a main reproductive organ, right, that produces the male gamete. In females also, right, so we see that in females also, we see that there is a main reproductive organ that produces the female gamete, right? We see that that is what we call as the ovary. Now in females, we see that we see that they are small ovoid structures and these are found in the abdominal cavity or the abdominal region. What is the abdominal region? Region below your diaphragm, right? You know the diaphragm is a dome-like structure that separates the chest from the lower part. So this lower part that you see is what we call as the abdomen region. Now we see that there are a pair of ovaries, right? There is a pair of ovaries. Now they produce the female gamete, which is also called as egg, or it is also called as ovum. Now many of you will ask me, ma'am, what is ova? Ova is nothing but the plural form, right? That is what we call as the plural form. Ova is nothing but plural form. Yes? Now we see that the ovary that is there produces the eggs. Now just above the ovaries, we see that there are these finger-like projections, right? We see that there are finger-like projections. Now these finger-like projections are not attached to the ovary, but rather think of it as something where they are close to the ovary, but they are not attached, okay? They are close to the ovary, yes? Now these structures are what you call as fimbriae, right? We call them as fimbriae, or we call them as, simply you can think of it as finger-like structures. Now these lead to tubes, right? So we have two pairs of ovaries. That means that there are two tube-like structures, and these two tube-like structures is what we call as fallopian tube. So this fallopian tube is also called as oviduct. It is called as oviduct or it is called as fallopian tube. Yes? Now we see that the two fallopian tubes that are there, yes, the two fallopian tubes that are there, they come together and they join this muscular sac-like structure, right? So we see that it joins this muscular pear-shaped structure, yes, pear-shaped structure which is called as the uterus. Now this is very, very important structure in females, right? This right here is very important. So we see that from the uterus, we see that it leads to a small narrow canal which we call as the birth canal or the cervix, and eventually we see that it leads into a tube-like structure that opens to the outside, which is the vagina. Okay, so here this is the basic overview of the female reproductive system. So are we clear about the female reproductive system and the different parts? Yes? Saroj, see, I always, with this chapter, I come prepared, right? I know that there will be some over smart students in class asking me questions, thinking that, I don't come prepared for all these things. See, I'm one of the most patient teachers. I'm extremely patient. My tolerance level for some reason is very high. So I don't really get affected by it, and I always tell you outright. I catch you. I know who is who. So I don't need to address those questions, right? I know you understood. In your examination, you can, let me first tell you that there's nothing to be so hoo-hoo ha-ha about. It's normal only. I'm trying to normalize all of this for all of you so that you feel okay in talking about it. There's nothing to be going hoo-hoo-hoo about it. It's all normal, right? This is all normal. It's for all of you to understand that, see, these are things you need to be aware of, right? Understanding reproductive system, understanding changes that are happening to your body. You're all entering into your adolescence or your teenage phase. So there's a reason why we teach you all these things at your 8th grade, 10th grade, 12th grade level. So you are made aware about a lot of things. Lack of awareness leads to a lot of miscommunication of ideas, right? That is why I always tell you that as students, you are the future of tomorrow. So as aware you are, it is good for you. Yes, I always tell you that I make it a point that I teach you well because my responsibility is to teach you well. Yes? Okay. Ma'am, can you explain fimbriae? See, basically fimbriae, that is, there are these finger-like structures, right? They are these finger-like structures which are found close to the ovary, but they are not found attached to it. Yes? Okay. Ma'am, why reproductive part of male is outside the body? Is there any reason? I will tell you, right? See, that bit of it comes in understanding of how exactly sexual reproduction takes place. Because you know that both reproductive systems are responsible for producing gametes. Now, when I say that in sexual reproduction, these gametes are the ones coming together. What do we see? We see that in this case, it is the male gamete or the sperm and the female gamete or the egg that is coming, right? Now, in the case of, for understanding this better, you need to know the structure also. Now, I told you that the testis produces the sperm and the sperm is transported. But how exactly is it transported? It is because of the fact that the structure of the sperm has a head region, right? It has a middle portion and a tail region. Now, this head portion that you see also has the genetic information. So, this head portion of the sperm has the information that is necessary for producing a young one, right? And similarly, the middle piece that is there is where the energy gets produced, and the tail is there for swimming, right? So basically, the sperms that are there have the ability to swim, and the tail moves in this round action so that it is able to go forward. Now, in the case of the egg, we see that there is a nucleus, where again we see that the information is present to make a young one. Now, at the same time, we see that it does not have any tail or anything, which means that this is a structure that cannot move on its own, which is why we see that the sperms are the ones which reach the egg, right? So what happens? We see that through the external genitalia structures, right? So through the penis, we see that the sperm is ejaculated and it enters into the female body, right? How does it enter into the female body? Through the vagina that is there. So it eventually leads into the female reproductive tract, right? So once it enters into the female reproductive tract, what happens? So we see that the sperms are released here, right? So when the sperms are released, they have the ability to swim upwards. And that too, it is not 1-2 sperms which are released. Millions and millions of sperms are released, right? So we see that millions and millions of sperms are released, yes? So in this case, what do we see? When so many sperms are released, and if at the same time, if we see that the ovary will release an egg, right? Or it releases the ovum. What is happening? We see that the sperm and the egg are meeting, right? So we see that the sperm and the egg are meeting. Now, when they meet, what will happen? We see that they will fuse. That means they will combine and they will become one. Now, this process of fusion of male and female gamete is what we call as fertilization. Very, very important. What is fertilization? Formation or fusion of male and female gamete is what we call as such. Now, why are so many sperms released? See, understand that many of you are asking me, ma'am, how does a sperm know where to go? Now, there are a lot of chemical reactions, a lot of the chemical nature of it is also a very important factor. So, if there's only one single sperm, right, maybe the chance of fusion or chance of meeting, they want to improve the chances. Sorry about that. So we know that if the egg gets released and the sperms are released, right, to maximize chances of fusion, millions of sperms get released. And then what do we see? We see that one sperm and one egg, if at all, they meet. And that too, where should they meet? They should meet at the fallopian tube, right? So we see that this fusion that is there is happening in the fallopian tube, right? So if they meet at this region, then we see that then only fusion will happen. What if the sperms were released at a time where the egg reached here? Then fertilization may or may not happen. So that is why in this case we see that this is what we call as fertilization. So are we all clear? Yes? Are you all clear with this? Yes or no? Good to go? I'll come to uterus part. We've not even reached uterus. We've just reached till fertilization. So much more to go. Ma'am, how egg enters down if uterus cannot move? Good question, Anushka. I will answer that. Anushka and Advika are asking me, ma'am, how egg will move if uterus cannot move? See, in the fallopian tube, what happens is the inner lining of the fallopian tube, the entire inner lining, right? Inside. So think of it as a tube, okay? I don't have any. I'm using some random things here. Now imagine that this is a tube. Yes? In the inner lining, that means in the inside, you will see that there are these hair-like structures or what we call as cilia, right? So we see that there are these hair-like structures or cilia that keep lashing back and forth, right? That keep lashing back and forth. And as they lash, what will happen? They will end up moving forward, right? So we see that they end up moving, or that's how the egg moves forward. So there are other structures that help in its movement. But are you clear till now? Yes? Ma'am, how did scientists know so much about this? They did a lot of research, right? With the advancement of technology, with the advancement of sciences and understanding, they've studied all of this in great detail, right? Yes, cilia is there. See, cilia is basically hair-like structures. That is what we need to know. Ma'am, how will the ovary come at the time when the sperm comes? Good question. See, how egg is released. Now, unlike sperms, which are millions and millions in number, the egg that is there is not so many in number, right? So when you learn the next chapter, that is something that I will cover in detail. But I was also about to tell you this in just some time. Now in the male body, sperms are produced almost at a regular pace. But in the case of females, the female body is quite different, right? Female body is different. Because what happens is when females are babies itself, right? So let's assume that there is a baby girl. When the baby girl is being developed within the mother's body, what happens is that this baby girl will have a fixed number of eggs which are produced, right? There will be a fixed number, 30,000, 40,000, there will be a fixed number of eggs. And what happens is that this eggs, what will happen? They will be produced, but they are not mature again, right? They are just very primitive. They cannot be used for reproduction as is. Which is why eventually when the body becomes mature and the body is ready for reproduction, we see that there will only be this fixed number of eggs. So this, when we learn our reaching the age of adolescence chapter in detail, you will understand how there is a reproductive phase. But if I go too much into all of that, no, then we'll get distracted. That is why first let's understand the basics of it. Okay, this is just the basics. Okay, so now we know that fertilization has happened, right? Fertilization has happened. Now what happens during fertilization? Quickly to recall, we see that there is fusion of sperm and egg in the oviduct. This is a short question that they will ask you, so please highlight this, right? Now what will happen? When the sperm and egg fuse, they will become one single structure, right? Or they will become one single cell. Now this one single cell is what we call as zygote, right? So we call this as zygote. So a structure which is formed as a result of fusion of male and female gamete is what we call as zygote. Now this when one single cell, now what has happened? This single cell is formed inside the mother's body, right? Do you all agree with me that this zygote that is there is formed inside the mother's body, not inside the father's body, right? Do you all agree with me, yes or no? Ma'am, zygote formation because fusion or fertilization has happened inside the oviduct. That means what? That means now the zygote is formed inside the mother's body, which means over a period of time, this zygote, right? This zygote is what will become into the young baby. But how does the zygote develop inside the mother's body, right? Now I'm saying that this single cell zygote, it is one single cell, right? Which is now eventually becoming into a human baby. Now this young baby that is there, all that development, right, is what is happening inside the mother's body. So why exactly or how exactly does this happen inside the mother's body? Let's understand this. Just give me one moment. Yes. Now, we know that formation of this zygote, right? This is happening inside the oviduct. Inside the oviduct, this has happened. Now, this is a cell. Now, what will happen? This cell that is there, it's a single cell. This will start to grow. Now, when I say grow, does this mean that it will become bigger and bigger? Or does this mean that it will increase in number? What do you think? When I say a cell will grow, does this mean that it is becoming bigger in size or more in number? Yes? I will answer your questions, but first you need to wait. Very good. Yes, very good in Inia. I can see Harvi. I can see Mukesh. Yes, very good Mukesh. Okay, ma'am, Advik, very good. Okay, very good all of you. Very, very good, right? So here it is increase in number, right? So as they increase in number, they are growing, right? So even when we grow, like for example, when you are growing, what's happening is that there is elongation. There's a lot of processes involved, right? But we see that there is more increase in number in this case. Now what will happen? We see that in this particular case, oops, let me go back. It will undergo various changes. So because fertilization has happened in the oviduct has all those, cilia that we discussed, right? That is lashing back and forth, right? So it's lashing back and forth. So now this zygote will keep moving forward, but it will keep increasing in number also, right? So we see that it will keep increasing in number. And as it keeps increasing, what do we see? It will become a clump of cells now. Right? So by the time it reaches the uterus, we see that it becomes a clump of cells, right? So it becomes a clump of cells. Now this clump of cells, when by the time it reaches the uterus, is what we will call as the blastocyst, right? So we will call this as the blastocyst. Now at this point, what do we see? At this point, we see that it will now enter into its initial stage of development, right? So So here we see that it will reach its initial stage where it's an embryo, right? So we see that it will form an embryo. Now initially what will happen? At this point it is an early developmental stage, right? And we see that around this time is when it will get attached to the uterus. So what will happen at this blastocyst stage, when it is a clump of cells, it will now get attached to the wall of the uterus. Now this attachment to the wall of uterus is what we will call as implantation. This is there in your textbook, very, very important, right? So we see that this is what we call as implantation, and it gets attached to the inner wall of the uterus, right? So we see that it gets attached to the inner wall of the uterus, which is what we will call as endometrium. Many of you are asking me, ma'am, what is endometrium? Endometrium is the inner lining of the uterus, right? So this right here is the inner lining. Are you all clear? Yes? Are you all clear? Now, embryo is the initial stage of development, right? But eventually, what will happen? That embryo, which is the initial stage, will undergo development, where now it will develop its limbs, its hands and legs, and slowly different parts of the body will start to appear. So this stage, right, is what we will call as the fetus stage. So as once it gets attached or implanted to the wall of the uterus, what will happen? It will start to grow now. Yes, it will start to grow within the mother's body, as you can see right here. Yes, so we see that it will start to grow inside the mother's body, where over a period of time, size-wise it will become bigger. It will start to have more specialized parts in its body, right? And we see that now it will look more and more human-like, right? So this development is something that we observe. Yes? So now we know why, right? Why it got attached to the wall of the uterus. Because when it gets attached to the wall of the uterus, we see that all the nutrients, all the necessary things that is needed for growth and development to happen is provided by the mother. And in the human body, this development takes place for 9 months. So for 9 months, the mother's body will be entirely making sure that the baby's growth takes place. And of course, mothers normally they eat good food, they eat nutritious food, take good care so that the development of the young one happens well, right? And once when they are developed, right, they will be born, right, or they will now be pushed out of the mother's body and they are ready for life. So we see that through the cervix. Many of you are asking me, ma'am, why is there a cervix? That is the birth canal, right? So they're all made up of muscles, and all those muscles, they will relax and they will allow for the baby to come out of the mother's body. So this is the whole idea of sexual reproduction. Now very quickly, right? Very quickly, how many of you, what is your confidence level? Out of 100, right? What is your confidence level? Quickly, what is the confidence level? Out of 100, whatever it be. I will take your doubts, don't worry, doubt board is coming. But in the meanwhile, I need to know what is your confidence level, right? 100, 95, ma'am, 0. Yo, why? James, what happened? 90, 98. Okay, 100. Ma'am, I have doubt. Now, 99.99% of all of you have a doubt as to how twins are formed. How many of you have this doubt? Yes, ma'am, we want to know about twins. For some reasons, even when you reach 10th standard, you don't care about the rest of it. You want to know how twins are born, right? We always want to know twins. Okay. I know many of you have this doubt only. Ma'am, I want to know twins. Your seniors are also like this, right? Yes. Now, let me tell you. In the case of twins, have you seen there are two types of twins? Yes, you have seen that some twins are identical. That means most features of their body look similar, right? While on the other hand, some don't look identical, right? So we see that there are two kinds of twins. We have non-identical twins and we have identical twins, right? Some they look similar. Most features are similar to a point when sometimes you will think who is who, right? But in some cases, right, we see that they are non-identical. Now, what is the difference? Now see, I told you that male gamete will fuse with female gamete, yes, and they will give rise to a zygote, right? Now, there are two ways in which this can happen. One, what will happen is, in the case of one such case is when there is a single zygote, right? And I told you it will undergo increasing number. But what will happen is this zygote will sometimes, when it is dividing or when it is going into the next stage, right? This single zygote will end up splitting into two. It will split entirely into two different structures. So ideally what should have happened? This should have become this, right? Two cell. They are attached together because I told you they'll clump up eventually. But instead of becoming this, they will end up becoming this, where it will entirely split. So in such cases, what will happen? It will result in an identical twin, right? So this will result in an identical twin. But in some cases, in the case of non-identical, it could be that two sperms are fusing with two eggs, right? In rare cases, that happens. So that is fraternal twins or non-identical twins that you have. Yes? Okay. Ma'am, won't the organs get squished? See, if you think about it, the body in females is equipped to support that, right? Yes, the organs do get moved around, but not to such an extent. Because see, development, if you see, it's not as much as it pushes the organs a little bit, because the uterus is muscular and elastic, we also see that it will protrude outwards, right? That's why we see that pregnant women tend to have a big belly. That's how we sort of, sometimes identify them in the later stages of pregnancy, of course, right? So we see that some of the organs do get squished, but they don't get squashed entirely. Yes? What is the work of fimbriae? Now see, I told you that eggs don't have any way in which, they don't have any ways in which they can move, right? So what will happen? We see that because of that, when the egg gets released from the ovary, somebody needs to transport it to the next part. So that is where your fimbriae comes into the picture, right? Ma'am, is there any particular age for fertilization? Very important question which you will learn in greater detail in your next chapter. But understand that the body attains reproductive maturity, right? So basically the body attains reproductive maturity. That means that the reproductive organs start getting functional, they start doing its job of producing male and female gamete, maybe during the adolescence phase, right? Adolescence phase onwards, the body starts to undergo changes. But ideally, mentally and physically, the body is only fully developed during adulthood, right? Although the body undergoes changes right from adolescence, the body is not fully equipped or fully not developed, which is why we see that adulthood is when the body is fully there. Ma'am, why could there be some disabilities? There are various reasons as to why sometimes a baby might be born with some genetic disabilities or could be born with some issues. So that happens due to multiple reasons, right? It could be either due to some changes at a genetic level. It could happen either due to maybe during the developmental stage, maybe something went wrong. There are multiple reasons, right? Transgenders. See, transgender is a concept, right? Wherein it's not a physical, biological thing, okay? There is no transgender being born because any individual can be born only as a male or a female. And how do we decide that? Because of the reproductive organ, right? So an individual is called as a male if they have the reproductive organ testis. An individual is called as a female if they have the, ovary. So it is decided because of the reproductive structures, that ideology. Transgenderism is a concept wherein some individuals tend to maybe identify themselves, right? Although they are genetically or biologically born as a female or a male, they may identify themselves in the opposite gender. This is a more of a psychological thing, right? Or due to multiple other factors, they are identifying themselves in the opposite gender. So we call them as a transgender, right? So I have answered that. Okay. Now how are we feeling, students? See, I know this is a very heavy thing to know, right? I almost took 1.5 hours to explain this topic. Why does the baby get inverted? The baby gets inverted because, see, when delivery happens, right, when the baby is born, when the baby goes head first, right, we see that way there are lesser chances. So head first, we see that there are lesser chances of any damage from happening. But if the baby was other way round, leg first, we say that it is a breech, because that way it can complicate delivery for mother and baby, right? Ma'am, how egg will go to fallopian tube? It will get released and cilia are there. Okay, are we all clear? See, in vitro fertilization I will do later. I am not going into in vitro right now. Difference between testosterone and sperm cell. Testosterone is a hormone that aids the development of the reproductive structures and the sexual characteristic in males, like, mustache and deep voice and all that, right? Yes. Okay. Ma'am, how many days does the fertilization take place? There's a fertilization window. So during a female, so that again, for you to understand that, in the next chapter we'll be covering a concept called as menstruation or menstrual cycle, where we see that there is a window where every month there is about 3 days of time and the egg is at an ideal position for fertilization. So it is a window, right? Ma'am, is it possible that it is inverted? I mean legs. Huh? Ma'am, yes, okay. Now I will go on, right? Now I will go on towards the end. See, I know that we were also going to cover types of fertilization. We were supposed to do oviparous, viviparous, metamorphosis. But very quickly, students, should we do that another day or should we finish it off today? What do you think? Yes? Should we do it another day or should we do it today? You tell me. Because if you feel that, ma'am, it is too much, then we can do it another day, right? Implantation is attachment of the blastocyst to the wall of the uterus, right? Ma'am, uterus will not tear. Most likely no. It is, the female's body is equipped, right? See, at a broader level, the female body is equipped to handle it, right? More or less. Okay. Ma'am, what? Sperm to ova, see, how does the sperm reach? Sperm has a tail that allows the sperm to swim, right? Okay, I can see many of you are saying other day. Some of you are saying today, right? Too much, ma'am, today. Yeah, even I felt that it was too much teaching for all of you, which is why I'm also leaning towards doing it another day, right? So, the rest of it is a very small topic, so you don't need to worry about it. We'll do it another day, but I have a homework question for all of you, right? Where you need to tell me the difference between a zygote and a fetus, right? So that you have to let me know in the comments of the video. And I will be checking your answers. Now, answering the question to which Anushka asked me in the previous class, which was based on asexual reproduction, where there is a type of jellyfish which is said to be immortal. That means that that jellyfish will never die, right? So how exactly does it do that? Now apparently that particular jellyfish has the ability to do a process called as transdifferentiation. That means that that jellyfish, when it experiences any threat, right, that means that it may experience maybe not enough food, or maybe there are various other factors which is leading towards it not being able to survive properly. So what will happen is it will go back in its life cycle. So in jellyfishes, they normally, when we think of it, we always imagine this is how that a jellyfish would look like. But this is only one stage of development in a jellyfish. They have various stages. So what will they do? They will go back to its initial stage and then they will come back whenever they can survive. So because they have that ability to go back and forth with it, we call that as transdifferentiation, right? So that is a process which is very unique that we see in this particular type of organism. So Anushka, I hope I was able to answer. Ma'am, is it possible that all male and female gametes of the body did not fuse, and if not, why? See, it's not that at all times if the male gamete is produced, it has to fertilize. Chances are half the time it is not getting fertilized and it just goes out of the body or it gets ejaculated. In the case of females, there's a cyclic way in which the unfertilized egg or egg that is not fertilized will be given out of the body, right? Ma'am, how egg will go in fallopian tube? NK Yadav, you are not paying attention in class. I told you, there are cilia which will latch back and forth. Okay. Ma'am, is it possible that it is inverted? I mean legs first. And how sperms reach female body? I told you through the external genitalia, the penis, the sperms are ejaculated out into the female tract. And once it's inside the female tract, it will swim, right? Okay. Very good. Hayat, I answered your question, bacha, I answered. What is ovulation? Japneet release of egg from the ovary is what we call as ovulation. Yes? Kuch sach mein aaye the, ma'am. Yes, I have come to Shiva Bhaiya's channel. Okay. Ma'am, cilia hair like... Yeah. What are the three accessory glands? In males, it is seminal vesicle. Then it is prostate. And we have bulbourethral. So these are the three that are there. Yes? Okay. Menti soon. Awesome. Now, of course, with this everybody, like I said, I want try to answer as many questions as possible. But if you still have doubts, do let me know in the comments of this video, right? And as you all know, I hope you enjoyed this class. If you did, do not forget to let me know in the comments of this video. I will be coming up with another part where we will cover types of fertilization. We'll be covering, we'll be looking at oviparous, viviparous organisms. We'll be looking at metamorphosis, and we will be elaborating a lot, right? So don't worry, we'll have another class. But up until then, students, let me know if you enjoyed the class, and I will see you all soon. But up until then, take care. Lots of love to all of you, and bye bye. Good night.